like to welcome to the Morning Watch program congressional candidate Jon Golnik. Now, Jon is running in the 5th Congressional District, and that right now is being represented by Nikki Tsongas, Democrat out of Lowell. And, Jon, good morning to you.
Good morning, Win. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, nice to have you here. And for those who may not know the boundaries of the 5th Congressional District, since we happen to be, Newburyport happens to be in the 6th one, why don't you outline what the district is for the 5th District?
The 5th District, Win, is made up of 29 towns and cities. It's a large district. There's 4 towns in Essex County, 21 towns in Middlesex, and then 4 in Worcester County. So it's long and broad, and it goes as we go all the way from Haverhill all the way out west to Shirley and Lancaster. We head down south then to Hudson and Stowe over to Sudbury. It's big. It's a good-sized district. It keeps us running around, that's for sure.
Now you're on the campaign trail today. I understand you're going to be in Andover today?
That's right. We have just we started off with the campaign. We did a Can You Hear Us Now tour. Our first tour was back in April, and it consisted of going to the coffee shops throughout the district. We actually went to coffee shops and diners in all 29 towns in the district in 10 days. Coincided with the 10-day congressional recess, and that was done intentionally. Then we followed it up with a commuter rail station tour. We hit all the commuter stations, train stations, and now this is the third leg of this tour. We're going to businesses in all the towns in the district. So we were in Haverhill last week, and we were in Lawrence, and today we'll be in Andover, and on Monday Thursday we'll be in Methuen.
Well, why don't you tell us some of the feedback that you've been getting as the Republican candidate?
You know, it's interesting. I understand how a lot of people can be cynical about the political process, but running as a candidate, I actually it's warmed my heart. For every bad experience, I have 10 good ones, and I think people are frustrated. The overarching theme that I'm hearing is people feel like they're not being listened to, and they get a little bit aggravated because they feel like that the leadership in Washington, D.C. Knows what's best for them. And at the end of the day, I think people believe that really the only people who know what's best for them are themselves. So that's what we're finding out. It's different when you talk to everybody. I mean, the business tours, look, you know, when we talk to these businessmen, a lot of problems that they're encountering is, you know, they have good projects on the books. They just don't have access to credit. And again, you know, I know the stimulus package was supposed to help our unemployment situation, but at the end of the day, I'm a big believer, and I'm finding when I talk to these small businesses that, look, the private sector are where these sustainable jobs are going to be created, and we need to help that.
Yeah, it seems like when they talk about the jobs and the stimulus package, it seems like they keep talking about jobs saved, not jobs created.
Right, that's right, and I've always kind of laughed at myself about that. I mean, I've never heard of that term, job saved. I think it can be a rather subjective term as well. The facts of the matter remain is that we've had unemployment hovering up around 10%. The unemployment rate in the Commonwealth since January of 2007 has doubled, and it's a struggle. And I mean, you know, a lot of the legislation, I know people we hear out of Washington, they're going to focus on jobs, but again, the facts are that health care plan that was recently passed in the spring was spent 12 months on that, and that's a job killer. You know, a 2.3% excise tax on medical device manufacturers, a lot of whom are domiciled in the 5th District. It's going to be a job killer.
We're talking with Republican Jon Golnik. He's running for Congress for the 5th District, and that seat is currently represented by Nikki Tsongas. And another one of the issues that seems to be cropping up, because I know it's you know, the Arizona thing is going to be happening sooner rather than later, and that's immigration. And what are your stands on that?
Look, I have never supported amnesty. You know, this country, our strength comes. We're a diverse country. Our strength comes from our immigrants, but our immigrants that have come here legally. I think that illegal immigration is the single biggest challenge that we face as a country, because it cuts across all of our other challenging issues like health care and education and national security. And you know, illegals come here because of magnets, and like it or not, the biggest magnet of all would be amnesty. And again, when I'm a practical guy, if amnesty, someone could show me that amnesty has worked, I'd be willing to listen. But you know, back in 1986, Ronald Reagan signed an amnesty bill with the comprehensive immigration reform, and that was 2.6 or 2.9 million illegals were put on the path to citizenship. And now, 24 years later, you know, we have 12 million. So it didn't work, and for a whole host of reasons. One, that we didn't enforce our borders, and two, we didn't enforce employee verification.
I know the border thing is really something, because the Arizona law that people have been talking about, it's really just a mirror of what's on the books federally, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. And it's a good illustration, again, of what happens when the federal government can't secure the borders. It forces a state like Arizona to take the steps that they've taken. So it's a problem, and I think that of course, down in Arizona, it's a little different than border states like that confront more of a crime issue than an economic issue. They have there's murders and there's kidnappings and things of that nature. So it's certainly more acute, the problems they face down there. But again, look, the federal government is not securing the borders, and Arizona has felt the need to step in and do this themselves.
Well, we're talking with Jon Golnik, Republican candidate for the 5th Congressional District. For our listeners that we have in the 5th District, if you could, why don't you try to, because we're running out of time, why don't you try to explain the difference between you and your opponent?
Again, when it comes down to a couple of things, I believe that Representative Tsongas certainly wants to take this country to a better place, as do I. It's just the path that we want to take the country there is what we differ on. I'm a big believer in empowering the private sector. I think this is a pocketbook issues race. We need to lower taxes on businesses. We need to lower regulation on businesses because the businesses are where the sustainable jobs will be created. I believe that that everything revolves around jobs. We can renegotiate people's mortgages to lower their payments if they're in some hot water from $350 to $325. But at the end of the day, if they're not working, they're not paying their mortgages. And at the end of the day, again, the overriding theme is: look, I'm going to listen. People feel like they're not being listened to. Congress isn't listening, but I will, and I'm engaged. And I think that the campaign, in a lot of ways, is a dress rehearsal for the type of congressman that one would be, and I hope that I'm showing people with my actions that I'm all the above. So,
all right, Jon. Now your website.
My website is www.jongolnik.com.
And that's Golnik.
That's right, and Jon is Jon with there's no H, so JONGOLNIK.com.
Okay. Well, Jon, I want to thank you for joining us here on the Morning Watch.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right. Our guest has been Republican candidate Jon Golnik. He's running for Congress in the 5th Congressional District.